We're still a few days away from March Madness opening up play, but who got left out and who is feeling March sadness? We'll discuss some of the biggest schools left out of this year's Field of 68. Was there a screw up in regards to Iowa women's basketball having the hardest path in the women's bracket this year? Dartmouth men's basketball and their union proposal is hitting some steep waters, and plenty more to come across the entire world of sports media and sports business and media coming up here on Press Row right now. This Coast to Coast Entertainment Network program is brought to you by Beside Me Bracelets. Our bracelets are handmade for any occasion. Use the promo code Coast to Coast for 15% off. Visit their website at besideme.com. Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry. With 24-hour shopping available, use the code 160920 and show her some love, like she showed us. Reaper Apparel Company, a commitment to live your most authentic way every single day. Visit reaperapparelco.com for more information and a look at all of their apparel offerings. And by Good Day Embroidery, your local source for custom embroidery, screen printing, and more. Log on to gooddayembroidery.com for more information. It's been a hot minute, folks, but we are back, and welcome in, folks, to Press Row, covering all the angles of the sports media and sports business landscape and covering the biggest stories of the day in the wide world of sports from that angle of sports media and sports business. Yours truly, Callan McClurg, back with you here. After a lengthy couple of weeks of work, illness, tooth pain, you name it, we've had a whole smorgasbord of issues here. On top of the fact, though, too, as well, dealing with some tech problems here. But, of course, glad to have you folks aboard here today on our first program, I believe, of the entire our second program here for the month of March here on Press Row, here on Coast to Coast Entertainment. Hopefully you and yours are having a great start to your Monday and getting ready for March Madness tipping off later on this week, of course, with the play-in games on Tuesday. Before we have the full menu of games on Thursday, we'll have plenty, folks, of March Madness discussion here from the business and media perspective and some other news, though, as well. Here today, but of course, folks, we invite your input, though, via Facebook, via YouTube, and via the Twitch channel here today. Again, drop your live commentary in the box. We'll do our absolute best to make sure that your commentary is read on tonight's program. We're going to first and foremost say hello to our good friends, both Brandon Herrera and Christy Wilson, joining us here today. With that, folks, into the big board of topics here today. And yes, Brandon as well. We will work on that on the grid game coming back to maybe tonight. We'll see what happens about that. Also, folks, do want to also let you know real quick as well that at the end of the program, we'll be having a very cool announcement that I'm teasing for a couple months down the road, though, but we'll have more about that later on. With that in mind, though, folks, into the big board, of course, March Madness is here, but it also, folks, is all about March sadness. Who out there was left out of the top 68 schools, with the field being released on Sunday, with the UConn Huskies, the defending national champions, being the number one overall seed, but was filled, though, with some notable snubs. This includes the Indiana State Sycamores, who were the 28th ranked school in the net rankings, set a new record for the highest ranked team to be left out of the tournament. The Big East Conference, including 32nd seeded St. John's, Providence, and Seton Hall, also had raw feelings and emotions after they were left out as well of the tournament. Providence head coach Kim English actually criticized the evaluation metrics from the NCAA, arguing that they reward teams for scoring more against lesser-known opponents. Other schools, including both St. John's, Indiana, Memphis, and even Ole Miss, have also indicated that they will not take invites to the annual NIT tournament, and also the decision that has been made to exclude non-Power 5 schools, sorry about that, from the tournament has implications as well for millions of dollars from the involved schools and their conference affiliations. Every year, folks, we know this for a fact that there's always feel-good stories in college football and, for that matter, college basketball. Now, again, as you folks probably know, though, I have long said, though, that March Madness works because of the amount of schools that get in to the tournament. You have the perfect format, I think, though, where you get 32 automatic qualifiers. If you are a conference champion, you automatically get in. The other 32 or 34 schools, 36 schools, it's an at-large bid. Again, going back to my point, though, that this is why March Madness works. But again, though, we do, though, have some schools who, again, feel like they were left out and left high and dry, which I believe, though, has been somewhat in a way kind of leading down this road now here, folks. There's been some spattering of talk here of even having a expanded March Madness field to maybe 96 schools sometime in the future. Could you imagine a 96-team tournament? That would almost guarantee that every conference gets probably, I'd say, 6 schools that gets in probably. I know a lot of that, though, is because of the ongoing efforts of realignment basically going on as well. But, of course, folks, there's always stories like this. And it sucks, though, because like I said, though, I think during the college football season, again, at the time, I had sympathy for Florida State and Georgia. Now, Georgia, I think, scored a lot of brownie points with me from my perspective of they went out there and played that Orange Bowl game as it was like a regular playoff game. Unlike Florida State, who took the easy way out, or in my case, the sore loser way out. Oh, we didn't make it. 20 guys are not going to play in the game. And again, they lose by 60 points. Here, I think it's a little bit along the same lines. St. John's, led by Rick Pitino. No thanks to the NIT. Indiana, Memphis, Ole Miss, thanks, but no thanks to the NIT. When it boils down to analytics and stuff being out of your control, I think the only thing that would be somewhat in a way holding back schools like these programs, how is your non-conference schedule? That's part of the reason why I feel like Oklahoma was left out. I think they only had 2 wins against marquee opponents who are in the tournament field. I don't know, folks, what really could be done to somewhat in a way eliminate like these schools of not getting in. But I still think, though, that March Madness has their format right. I think if you even went to maybe a 70-team bracket or a 72-team bracket and you maybe that'd be 6 play-in games, that maybe could perhaps get another one of these conferences, another team. Like, for example, the West Coast Conference now has been a multi-team conference, where at one point, a lot of the conferences like the WCC have usually been one school only, and that's the conference champion. Part of me, though, does wonder, though, if like conferences like the Mountain West, as James alludes to here real quick, that the Mountain West was way more competitive this year than the Big East. And the Mountain West got 6 schools into this year's field. San Diego State, UNM, and the other 4 are playing either as lower seeds, or 2 of them are playing in play-in games on Tuesday in Dayton. My belief here, though, folks, remains the same, though, that 68 schools to me still seems fair, because I do think that even though we have our reservations about a 12-team field or a 16-team field for the CFP or a 14-team field, not everybody's going to get in. And again, it goes to my point, though, that there's not going to be a squeaky clean format that will work for college football. Even college basketball, I think it still does work properly. But part of me does wonder, though, if that more and more schools like this keep getting axed or keep getting snubbed, then one does wonder about expanding the field again. Because I do think that part of the reason, though, I would even consider there to be expansion is because of the realignment. With the Pac-12 being all but now in the grave, I'm not so sure, though, what the best remedy could be, though, because as I have long said, folks, we are right now in ever-changing, elusive times right now when it comes to college athletics. Indiana State, though, getting hosed, though, sucks for the fact of the highest ranked team, metrically speaking by the numbers, is being left out. The Big East, other than UConn and maybe, I believe, Marquette, who I think got in. St. John's being left out. Providence being left out. Seton Hall getting left out by the metrics. Now the coaching staffs. Patino saying no thanks to the NIT. Kim English of Providence, thanks but no thanks. Also, in a way, saying, well, they're valuing, teams for beating up on these Division II schools early in the season. Like, how is that fair? And of course, this does have a ripple effect. The decision to exclude non-Power 5 conferences from the tournament has implications for millions of dollars for the involved schools in their conferences. Again, the West Coast Conference getting St. Mary's and Gonzaga both into the tournament means money for the schools in across the rest of the conference. Like, there is a ripple effect, a cascading effect of when conferences do not get in, that there is financial loss when it comes to factors like this. I just really, folks, wonder, though. I mainly wonder, though, about the NIT. The fact, though, of like these prominent names here, again, like a St. John's, a Indiana, Memphis, and Ole Miss saying no thanks to the tournament. I'm kind of wondering now if the NIT is losing their luster. Now, in a roundabout way, folks, here locally in San Diego, UC San Diego, the out of the Big West Conference, they are playing in another postseason tournament. They had to pay to play in the what's called the College Basketball Insiders, or CBI tournament. They were held out of their conference tournament and winning the regular season, and for that matter, conference tournament championships, because of the very outdated and stagnant ancient rule of, well, if you are transitioning from Division II to Division I, you are ineligible for a 4 to 5 year stretch because you're making this transitional gap. Like, you're making this jump right now from Division II to Division I. And they're playing in another tournament where they had to pay to be able to host. So, folks, give me your thoughts here. Indiana State setting a new record, sadly, for the highest-ranked team by the metrics to be left out of the NCAA tournament. The Big East Conference, kind of the iron fist ruler, I would say, for quite a while here of men's college basketball. Not getting in St. John's, Providence, and Seton Hall being left out. Providence head coach Kim English criticizing the NCAA committee and the evaluation metrics, arguing that, in his opinion, that the teams that pound the crap out of a Division II school in early November get maybe some extra brownie points to get into the tournament. And also your thoughts, though, too, about schools like St. John's, Indiana, Ole Miss, and Memphis saying no thanks to the NIT. Again, a lot going on here, folks, as we probably know very well here at this stage and at this point in time when it boils down to March Madness. And again, the facto as well here, seeing these programs being left out high and dry. All right, plenty of comments here. We've been having, folks, some tech problems here. My apologies again here. Let's go back to James again. James first said that the Mountain West Conference was more competitive than the Big East this year. Again, the Mountain West got 6 programs in. But again, though, James, the only thing here, again, like I said, the conference champion, UNM, who won the tournament, is a 11 seed. Utah State, regular season conference champion, is an 8. San Diego State, based off of last season's title game run, was the highest seeded Mountain West school as a 5 seed. And I think we all know historically that 5 and 12 seed matchups are usually no bueno. Other than those 3 schools, the other 3 are in play-in games to get into the actual field of 68 teams. James also says, Cal, I mainly blame the auto bids for Indiana State not getting in. James, I would agree, but again, I think it goes to my point, though, that there needs to be a reward if you win the conference tournament. But I also think, though, James, there should be a reward as well if you are the regular season conference champion. Now, St. Mary's, for example, won both the WCC regular season and the conference tournament. Utah State won the regular season Mountain West tournament. UNM won the conference title game tournament. Yet, though, UNM is an 11 seed, and Utah State, I think, is an 8. So how does San Diego State, though I know it's based off of potentially last year's run to the title game, how does a team who does not win the regular season title game or regular season tournament, regular season, I should say, and the conference tournament, how does like that third best team get a higher seed? How does Boise State, who beat San Diego State at Viejas Arena, one of the, if not toughest places to play as a visiting team, how does Boise State get a play-in game? That's more of like where I think I'm more confused here about where things are at, though. But I do think, though, James, there needs to be incentive. I think that the auto bids are fine, though. But again, it does, though, I think, though, James, go to your point, though, you do leave like that next best team, like on that bubble, again, on bubble watch, they get left out of the mix, sadly. Brandon also writes, well, if it's 96 teams, Cal, that means that all of Isaiah Leung's teams would get in and somehow, some way win. James also says, no room for expansion. I'm still not liking the first 4 games, to be very honest with you. And James, I definitely get that. I think if you go beyond 68, now you're looking at maybe adding in like 6 first 4 games or 8 first 4 games. Like you would really, I think they'll be watering down Tuesday and Wednesday. So I can definitely, James, see your thoughts here about no expansion. I just think, though, it would kind of go along the lines of like, well, we can't keep leaving teams like Indiana State, for example, out of the tournament mix. So we have to go to 70 teams, for example, and add one more first 4 game in. I just think more than anything else, though, that 68 is still fine. I really do think that that's the way that it should be at this rate. Anything more than 68 might be a little bit too much. Brandon further says that add teams to the big dance only if the NCAA gets rid of the NIT tournament. Yeah, Brandon, that'd be interesting. And I think, though, that you would also kind of in a way, though, it would almost in a way make you think of the NFL postseason, I would think. For the simple fact, Brandon, of look how deep into February now football season goes. Now you're looking at maybe where it's already at right now here. We literally now have the title game for basketball going into mid or early April on April 7th, I think, this year in Glendale. I still like the NIT. I think it's a very good constellation prize for a school like, for example, a UC San Diego who did not win or was not eligible to win their conference because of rules in place about transitioning from D2 to Division I. But again, they couldn't even get to the NIT. James also says that the NIT is about as useless as these early college football bowl games. Again, James, I would agree on that aspect, though. But I still think, though, it's a good incentive, I think, to reward schools who may not have gotten that offer to play. And I think as well, though, James, let these kids play maybe, a couple more games before their careers do come to a close. Because usually, like myself, once my season ended in high school, I never picked up a baseball ever again. And James also says that the Big East is not like the old Big East, definitely for sure. With that in mind, folks, we'll move on now to the first right of refusal. And this, folks, is a very, 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 very convoluted and very, very just back and forth story here. But, folks, a couple of weeks ago, a very landmark vote was cast by the Dartmouth University men's basketball team, who voted 13-2 amongst their 15 players to form a labor union just 2 weeks ago. Now, here we are 2 weeks later, and Dartmouth University has announced its intentions to not engage in collective bargaining negotiations with their men's basketball players who had voted by that 13-2 margin to become a union just 2 weeks ago. This historic union vote, allowing all 15 players to become service employees of the school via International Union Local 560 chapter, was certified by the National Labor Relations Board just today. This decision is part of a lengthy appeals process right now that could lead right now to the U.S. Supreme Court. This effort, which recognizes players as employees of the university, could also disrupt the business model of amateurism across NCAA athletics. Dartmouth has already filed a formal appeal of the player organization effort with the NLRB's national board, with the school refusing to collectively bargain to trigger another legal mechanism, which is that Local 560 will now file a unfair labor practice charge against the university. Once again, folks, like I said, this is a new era that we are entering right now in college athletics. Now, again, folks, I did not want to touch this story a couple weeks ago until I actually got more concrete information about this. Now, the vote did come down 2 weeks ago that the Dartmouth men's basketball team voted, all but 2 players said yes to forming a labor union to get benefits, better pay, all that sort of stuff, though. And again, this is a historic one, again, as mentioned, about this not happening ever before. Again, folks, at the end of the day right now, college athletics could not be any more unpredictable. Between NILs, between realignment, between a lot of the machinations and a lot of the maneuvering going on right now on the chessboard. But this right here, folks, I don't think is going to be going anywhere anytime soon. Because I believe that there's a similar vote right now going on at USC with football and basketball as well, to somewhat in a way do the same exact ordeal. I don't see this panning out, sadly. I applaud the effort of the players, though, to somewhat in a way get this movement, like this labor union, going forward. But I don't see this standing a chance whatsoever, sadly. Because, again, now we're talking about totally dismantling the amateurism system of what college athletics is supposed to be. Now, again, I might be the one man on the island here of this network that thinks that NIL is actually a good thing for these athletes, because of all the stories we've heard, though, about payment for players that has, again, cost schools and it's cost schools championships. It has cost coaches their jobs. It has cost players awards, a la Reggie Bush, for example. So again, I might be the one person on this entire C2C network who actually thinks NIL is a good thing for college athletics. I just don't like the fact about realignment going on. That's the one thing I don't think is going to work out, though. But now, though, we are entering, I think, a very big gray area here, folks, by far and away here, that I don't think that this is going to be having any standing ground whatsoever. I applaud the effort, but I don't see this coming to fruition. There is just too many hurdles and too many factors right now going against Dartmouth University's men's basketball team that I can probably honestly see the Supreme Court stepping in and saying, no, we can't do this. Because I believe that the further this gets dragged out, the more ramifications this will have. And I do believe that there still needs to be some kind of fine line between blurring what's professional and what is amateur. And again, I just don't know how this will work. And again, like James says here, that this could be a domino effect. And James says that he does not believe it'll be successful. I agree with him. Again, I love the ambitious idea, but I don't see this coming to fruition. There's just too many hurdles. And again, this could be a very long knockout, drag out ordeal. That there'll be lawsuit after lawsuit. And this could take years, decades, if that, for this to actually finally get resolved. And I just don't see it coming to fruition. But again, I like the ambitious plan and the idea. But also, I think it's a little bit interesting, though, that you would be considered an employee of a school and then you're out after 4 years. That's the part I think is a little bit is weird. You're only going to be a employee. I'll use air quotes, like you're a de facto employee of the basketball team for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years if you're lucky. And again, I don't think that this is going to work because I could see Dartmouth still suing. There'll be an appeal. Again, this process, folks, is going to be lengthy. It will probably take the Supreme Court stepping in and saying this cannot be a thing. Now, again, maybe it's for the fact of well, it's an Ivy League school. They can probably get away with some different stuff. Again, James said it right, though, that this would be a lasting, long domino effect if this actually became a thing. But again, folks, Dartmouth University has announced their intentions to not engage in a CBA or collective bargaining negotiation with their men's basketball players who voted 2 weeks ago by a 13-2 margin to form a labor union underneath the chapter or local chapter of the local 560 chapter, which again could set off a lengthy appeals process that could lead to a injunction by the U.S. Supreme Court. James also writes he agrees that NIL could be a thing but has to be regulated. I agree, James. I agree. Again, I think it's a good thing for college athletics, but again, there should be some sort of limit put on it as well. Moving on, folks, to more March Madness. Was there a failure done by the women's basketball selection committee by having Iowa and Callan McClurg mania having arguably the toughest regional of the 4 number 1 seeds in the ladies bracket this year? Callan McClurg's success has increased women's basketball popularity, boosting ticket prices, attendance, and, of course, ratings on TV. However, though, on Sunday, the committee has given Iowa perhaps the toughest regional of the top 4 number 1 seeds. The process accounts, though, for multiple factors, making it puzzling why the committee chose to put the team bringing the most money on the hardest path to the championship. If the Hawkeyes do survive, though, the regional gauntlet, which includes the defending champion LSU Tigers in their region, Clarkonomics is likely to follow them to the Final Four. Last year's ratings record led to a larger media rights deal for the NCAA championships, including Women's March Madness, and also the WNBA future for Clark also has a stake in this, as well as Clark's viewership could help its next star make it further into the tournament. I, folks, do wonder if this was not really intentionally done, but certainly the ball was dropped here, I think. Now, I do know for a fact, though, that you have to reward those who do great things. And again, South Carolina, folks, getting the overall number 1 is no surprise. They went through an entire year unbeaten again. And like I said, though, here back on Leap Day, we cannot discount or discredit what Dawn Staley has built with their bare hands coming to South Carolina and the program and reputation that she has built. And also how Dawn has been there for her players. In wake recently of JR from CBS Sports throwing Camila Cardosa under the bus about, being this, giant Brazilian woman. Again, those commented very, very out of bounds, in my opinion, too. You can call me soft if you want to, but I don't appreciate hearing that about anybody out there. And how Dawn has her players' backs. So again, it's hard to discredit, though, that South Carolina is the number 1 overall seed. Juju Watkins and USC. Phenomenal story. But then, though, you kind of think about Iowa. And I mainly think, though, that it's based upon regular season play. Iowa took their licks in Big Ten play. And they lost to Ohio State during the course of the season. They were kind of beat up a little bit, though, too, during some of the non-conference action this year. And then, in a way, they feasted upon the, inferiors in the Big Ten Conference. However, though, I do kind of wonder, though, and I think a lot of people would agree, though, that this was a little bit of the ball being dropped here by the Committee for Women's Basketball. Because I don't think, though, that you would want to have LSU. I think that you did not want to have the title game rematch of last year come, though, kind of early in the tournament. But at the end of the day, though, one does kind of wonder, though, if the ball was dropped here. And I think, though, that it's nobody's fault at the end of the day. But I do, though, can kind of see, though, the concern or maybe why people are saying, oh, man, this was a botched opportunity here of putting Iowa in probably the toughest regional for the entire tournament. Because now it goes to a point, though, folks, I brought up here in February. Let's think back, folks, to the fact that the Big Ten Conference had their tournament sold out for the first time ever simply because of Iowa. And you might remember me saying on here, what happens if Iowa bombs out and stubs their toe and does not get to the title game and loses? What if they lose like in game 1, for example? That I think would have, for one, crushed attendance. But sadly, I also think it would have, in a way, given all those naysayers out there fuel to further crap upon women's basketball. Of like, oh, look at this. Yeah, Iowa was a great story, And they bomb out like, oh, so much for the sellout crowds and all this other gibberish and garbage out there. That was my main concern about the Big Ten Conference being, their tournament being sold out is, oh boy, what happens if they stumble bump and they don't win the Big Ten tournament? And now one even thinks about that as well now here, is that kind of in a way like not the credibility of women's basketball, but someone in a way like this good thing going for the game right now with what Callan McClurg has built at a Big Ten school, but again, not a powerhouse program. For example, again, she's at Iowa. People like myself kind of get concerned now is that what if there's a stumble bump? What if they do stub their toe before they get to the regional final, get to the Final Four? How much that would pop the balloon for this year's tournament, in my opinion. Again, I do not want that to sound like I'm discrediting South Carolina, LSU, Stanford. Not at all. I just think, though, of how we have been viewing this basketball season on the women's side because of Callan McClurg, because of Iowa, because of what she has done for the game, though, on the court. I know about the records, but again, I look more, though, at the fact about the ticket prices, the people who've been lining up at 7 o'clock in the morning to get their spot in line to go into the building to watch this player play. That's more of why I'm concerned about if there's a stumble here in one of these rounds before they get to the Final Four, get to in the tournament final, of like the collective letdown I think that women's basketball fans would feel of not having the best thing going for their sport right now, not playing in the title game. And again, I don't want that to sound like I'm discrediting Dawn Staley, Tara Vanderveer, any of those programs. And I think, though, as well, that even after this season, I think that a lot of people that are in the women's basketball game, they've admitted, though, about how the craze has been for Callan McClurg being what she's doing right now. But is it a failure? Is it this? Is it that? I think the small problem was maybe the fact of LSU being a 3 and being in the same region as Iowa. Because I kind of think, though, that if you're the committee viewing this, why would you not want to have a rematch of those two if they get to the title game again? Could you have put LSU in a different section, in a different region maybe? But I know that that's not a part of what they're looking at. And again, I don't think it's a full-fledged failure. I think it's a very unfortunate luck of the draw that Iowa gets this very tough region that includes LSU, who beat them pretty handily in last year's title game. And I mainly think that that the concern is warranted because of what Callan has done for the game. And it goes back to the points I brought up here as well, back on Leap Day. Again, those exuberant ticket prices to watch Iowa women's basketball because of Callan McClurg is what now still kind of in a way makes me a little bit leery. But again, I don't think that that anyone's at fault. I think it is just the luck of the draw of how the committee picks March Madness. And especially as well, though, when you have, I believe that you have on-campus sites being used for the tournament as opposed to how the men's tournament is always held in neutral venues. The women's tournament, I believe, is always held on campus at, for example, in Columbia this year for South Carolina, in other places like that. I just feel like it's not a failure. It's more of a unfortunate luck of the draw. And kind of in a way, a part of me does get concerned, though, if Iowa does not reach the title game, that a lot of the good publicity that has been behind women's basketball this year, the balloon's going to pop. And I don't want that to happen. And again, like I said, I don't want this to sound like I'm totally ignoring what South Carolina has done, LSU being the defending champions, or Stanford. But I just think, though, that we have been just so caught up by it. And I think if you're not even a women's basketball fan, if you're a basketball fan purely in general, I think that you have been intrigued watching Callan McClurg play this season because of what she has done for the game. Sellout crowds, again, for Iowa women's basketball. Yeah, but scoring records are one thing. The all-time leading scorer for basketball across the college board. I just think, though, it's a very unfortunate series of events, as Lemony Snicket said. It's a series of unfortunate events of, as James says here, the committee punished Iowa for not being perfect. But then again, those South Carolina, LSU, and Stanford are all better than Iowa in his opinion. And I think, though, James goes to my point, though. South Carolina, unbeaten all year, overall number one. LSU, they had their early season struggles, again, trying to get Angel Reese and the other transfers to kind of work out. And again, Stanford is Stanford. And Cameron Brink is going to be probably number 2 in line behind Callan McClurg going to in the WNBA draft this upcoming April. So I think, James, it could have been punishment that they weren't perfect. I still was thinking it was a very unfortunate series of events that LSU happened to just get in the same region as Iowa. Let's, folks, move on. On the media side, Greg Gumbel, primary host of the CBS's March Madness Selection Show, was absent from the event on Sunday for the first time in 26 years due to family health issues. The news was reported by The Athletic's Richard Dietich and met, though, with pure sadness from longtime college basketball fans. The show opened up on Sunday with Adam Zucker opening the program with kind words and hope for Greg Gumbel's return. Analysts expressed their well wishes for Greg as well, whom they had worked with or called a friend for many years. Adam Zucker finished up the opening segment and referred to Gumbel as both a best friend and a studio partner. This is also, folks, will mark the first time in quite a while that Jim Nantz will also not be working the Final Four or the title game after he stepped away after last season. I will admit it was a very different feeling watching CBS's coverage on Sunday of the selection show following the golf tournament yesterday. Again, folks, Greg Gumbel has been a staple of March Madness, as, of course, has Jim Nantz with him in the Final Four in the title game. And, you know, it sucks when you've had that long, consistent flow of the same people that hosting these events, though. And again, sadly, it's a thing I say a lot, though, is that sometimes the value of life weighs more than your job for one day. And Greg Gumbel, to his credit, again, taking the time away to be with his family as family members going through some health problems. I thought it was very classy of Adam Zucker and Clark Kellogg and Jay Wright to open up their broadcast on Sunday and to let the audience know that Greg Gumbel was not going to be there, and to give Greg his flowers and stuff. And also, again, it'll be weird, though, not having Jim Nantz calling the title game this year and calling the Final Four. A cool little story here about Jim Nantz and myself, folks, is many years ago, Jim was in San Diego for a high roller auction and dinner event that a couple of friends of mine went to. And Jim had just published his autobiography about stories about himself and his dad and his career. And a friend of mine had his mom and dad go to this fundraiser, this auction, and this event. So they had like a Q&A with Jim and stuff like that, and there was an auction, and Jim actually auctioned off his autobiography uh, to the highest bidder. And I actually believe I have the book on my shelf over here. But anyway, my friend's parents outbid everybody and actually won Jim's autobiography that he had with him. And I remember that uh, his parents told me that they told Jim, Mr. Nance, we have a family friend of ours. Their son wants to become a broadcaster, and we think he would definitely enjoy this as a gift. Would you mind signing the book for him? And we're going to give it to him as a gift. And sure enough, there it is. So Jim's autobiography is called Always by My Side, A Father's Grace and a Sports Journey Unlike Any Other. And not only did I get the book, folks, but this is very cool that inside the front cover, it reads, "To Callan, see you at CBS," an autograph by Jim Nance himself. And in the very back of the book, another CBS and broadcast legend, the one and only Professor Dick Enberg, which says, "To Callan, oh my, Dick Enberg." And it will be weird when we do not hear Jim Nance calling the games for March Madness and for the championship game. But this is probably one of the coolest pieces of memorabilia I have, though, is having one of the greatest announcers of all time, having his book signed to me, and then having the phrase "See you at CBS" underneath it. Is incredible. And I think it was very poetic, though, that Jim's final ever game happened to involve a school from San Diego, California, playing in it. And I know that Jim loves coming to Torrey Pines for the Farmers Insurance Open. I know he couldn't be there this year because of the NFL postseason overlapping with Torrey this year. But again, like I said, though, folks, about Greg Gumbel, sometimes, again, life means more than college basketball. And in Jim Nance's case, I know that he wanted to step away, though, to do more things, to do more. And I know for a fact, though, as well, that Ian Eagle will do a great job filling in Jim's place for March Madness. And again, I thought it was very classy and a very great show of respect and a great gesture that Adam Zucker, Clark Kellogg, and Jay Wright opened up their broadcast on Sunday telling people about Greg Gumbel's conditions with his family right now and that they hope to see Greg back at work sometime soon. If there's anything, folks, I've learned in my time in this industry is that you form so many great relationships and that you see these people more often than you see your own family and your own family 9 times out of 10. I remember Antonio Gates when he was with the San Diego Chargers saying that, is that, I see my teammates more than I see my wife and kids every year during football season. And again, this March Madness does have a different feel again. Not having Greg Gumbel on yesterday on Sunday, and then not having Jim Nance calling the title games in the Final Four this year is going to feel different. It will feel different this year, and I know, though, as well, that Adam Zucker will do a great job filling in on CBS with the lead team for in-game updates, and that Ian Eagle will do a great job as well for the Final Four and for the national title game. And again, we wish all the best to Greg and to Jim. Again, with Greg and his family situation right now, and again to Jim. I know that he's not fully gone. He'll still be doing NFL football and other college basketball games and golf and other events. But again, it's going to be a very different year right now when it boils down to the coverage right now for March Madness. And again, we wish all the best to Greg Gumbel and his family, and hopefully that nothing serious comes out of it. And that, again, we wish all the best as well to the studio teams, Adam Zucker and the CBS crew. And again, wish our best to Ian Eagle filling in the very big shoes again of the great Jim Nance, who will not be again, returning this year to do the Final Four or doing the national championship game. Folks, one more story coming from the world of my profession of PA announcing. Very sad day in Major League Baseball. Rennell Brooks Moon, the trailblazing female announcer for the San Francisco Giants, is out after 24 years of service to the Giants organization. The Giants and Rennell both stated that the decision was to part ways was with Rennell was mutually done, and also was as well a mutual parting of ways between both Rennell and the Giants about a contract extension. Rennell was one of MLB's first female announcers on the PA side, following the footsteps of legendary Giants announcer Sherry Davis. Since both Sherry and Rennell took over the reins as the first female PA announcers in history, the Oakland Athletics, the New York Mets, and Baltimore Orioles have also hired female PA voices in Amelia Schimmel in Oakland, Marisol Castro in New York with the Mets, and Adrienne Robinson, who works for the Baltimore Orioles. The Giants do plan to honor Rennell in her 24 years of service by naming the PA booth at Oracle Park after her and holding a ceremony during a future game this season. Rennell was the PA voice for the Giants, who won 3 world titles between the years of 2010, 12, and 14. Plus, Rennell's scorebook from the 2002 World Series game between the Giants and Angels in 2002 is on display at the National Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York, with, of course, the announcement being met by disappointment among fans and even as well media members. Anytime, folks, I hear anyone in my profession in public address announcing lose their job or they part ways with their employer, it does get me a little bit upset and sad, especially when they are a fabric or like woven into the fabric of not just the team and the organization, but of the community. And here Rennell made her living in radio for a long time before she got the job after the Giants went to then Pac Bell Park. But for the San Francisco Giants, who broke the mold about letting a female announcer do in-game PA, to now dismiss one of the best-known voices in Major League Baseball in stadium announcing is kind of a disservice to that fan base. I had a chance, folks, to meet Rennell this past baseball season while I was in San Francisco for a friend's wedding. I had emailed her the week beforehand of, hey, I'm coming to the Bay Area, would love to see if we can meet up, and we did for like half an hour when the game ended. The announcement today, though, really, I think, closes, a chapter that Major League Baseball needs to get back to, and that is to make the game more, more in a way more inclusive and more welcoming to their female audiences. The Giants, though, breaking that barrier, though, with having Sherry Davis at Candlestick, then having Rennell come in at the new ballpark, has led to this great time we're in right now in Major League Baseball, where I know, folks, the A's have their issues right now getting Vegas this and all that malarkey. But now having known Amelia Schimmel, who is now the PA announcer for the Athletics, because her and I work indirectly in the American Hockey League with the San Jose with the Barracuda in San Jose and with the Gulls in San Diego. We just happen to work in the same division. Then I think about Marisol Castro filling in along with Colin Cosell with the Mets, and also Adrienne Robinson with the Baltimore Orioles. Like, Rennell Brooks Moon blazed a trail with Sherry Davis to get more women involved in public address announcing in Major League Baseball. And even for myself as a Padre fan, but also as a public address announcer, who was one of the very first people to reach out to me and congratulate me that I got into Major League Baseball when I got to fill in for the Los Angeles Angels in 2 years ago. Rennell Brooks Moon, who has always congratulated me in some way when I make some big announcement about I'm doing this event, or I'm doing this event, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. Who's usually one of the first people to congratulate me? Rennell Brooks Moon. And the announcement has really, I think, kind of hit home, though, that literally just last baseball season, I was meeting up with Rennell after the game, and I was just like starstruck. Like, this is one of the this is a trailblazer in this industry that is usually very much male dominated. But yet Rennell stood the test of time for 24 flipping seasons at Oracle Park. And I remember Rennell did an interview, I think, during COVID about kind of getting in that first time again. Like I said, again, females breaking barriers, and a lot of people, again, naysayers out there. Why is a woman announcing baseball, for God's sakes? And when Rennell, though, said, though, that she's heard from fans, at first I didn't know how to feel about you, lady, but now I can't come to a Giants game and not think about anyone else doing PA other than you. And today is just a very, like, for my profession at least, it feels like a very, very sad day. That one of the most notable voices probably in Major League Baseball is now parting ways with her employer after almost 25 years of service. And I think it's just for the fact I think it's the fact, though, of that the Giants broke the mold and now they're going a different direction. I think that's more the part that stings a little bit, is that this was the franchise that kind of, in a way, said, you know what? Screw it. We're going to have a female voice lead PA for our games in San Francisco, with Sherry Davis and then with Rennell for so long. But I think, though, it just mainly more tugs at my heart more than anything else, again, about knowing damn well that Rennell has always been in my corner. And maybe it's whatever it is, but knowing, again, though, and I think I wrote this in my caption when I wrote about, again, I was absolutely starstruck. Like, oh my goodness, I'm meeting someone who has their scorebook in the Hall of Fame, because it marked the first time ever that a female PA announcer had done the World Series. And it was just more along the lines of, like, knowing that you have someone like Rennell in your corner, always congratulating you when you land a new job, always giving advice, always wanting to be there. Now, I think, to the Giants' credit, folks, though I know it's a little bit of a very tough day, though, again, about Rennell not getting not coming back after the talks with her contract kind of went sideways and it was a mutual separation. I do believe, though, that the Giants are doing it the right way of having a game to honor Rennell and to name the PA booth after her. Because, like I said, folks, I think coming out of COVID, the jobs of the in-game entertainment team are now more and more accepted and more, I think, respected and loved, because that was missing for so long by the fans who cannot come to games. But at the end of the day, though, anytime I see colleagues of mine lose their jobs, they separate from a company, or they aren't retained, a part of me does get sad and gets upset. And I think today was more of a shock and more of a very, like, somber day, because, like, literally, like I said, I literally met Rennell last year. And it goes back to the fact of, literally, when I said I'm going to be working in Major League Baseball, filling in for the Los Angeles Angels, July 13th of 2022 versus Houston. Literally, one of the first people who contacted me to congratulate me was Rennell Brooks Moon, along with my guy Jeremiah Pat Brocky, who's now the PA voice for the Chicago Cubs. But something, though, about Rennell congratulating me is what has stayed with me for so long. And that Renell has still been, a very active follower of my career on the web. She's always congratulating me when I announce I'm doing something cool or something like a really cool event. But today's news, though, really does suck. Because, like I said, it kind of, in a way, closes a chapter that I never would have imagined seeing, though. And just on a personal level, again, I can't thank Renell Brooksmoon enough, though, for her advice, her blazing the path for Amelia and Marty Sol and Adrian, and other female announcers out there who now have made it big. Maybe not in Major League Baseball, but maybe in other sports. That she has been the torchbearer of getting more female voices involved in Major League Baseball, and I would even say, for that matter, across the whole sports world. And it's just very sad again to see a colleague and someone I consider a colleague and a friend uh, have to part ways with their employer after 20 plus years of service, uh, because it came down to finances and to a contract. And again, I just I really can't thank Renell enough. Again, like I said, when I went up to San Francisco last June for a friend's wedding, we all went out to a game, ironically, against the Padres. But Renell and I were emailing each other like all week leading up to the game, like, "Hey, I think I'm coming." Like, "Hey, I'm in town. I might be coming out to a game. Don't know yet. We'll keep you posted." Like, we literally had a long email chain going leading up to when we were finally able to meet up with each other after the game was over. And again, Renell cannot be any more gracious of her time, to talk about her career in a bit of a nutshell with me. Talk to me after the game, congratulate me on all my success. Again, filling in for that game with the Angels in 2022. And again, she was one of the first people that congratulated me on getting that gig and still being a part of the franchise now. And again, I don't think, though, that there really can be too much negativity sent towards the Giants, though. I do get the frustration, believe me, folks. But I think it's more of just like the sheer disappointment that a longtime fixture of this organization is now no longer with the club. But I also do think, though, that it's great that the Giants will honor Renell in some capacity. That the next announcer will be sitting in the Renell Brooksmoon press box. There'll be some sort of honor for her in some capacity. But I mainly think it's more the disappointment that Renell is no longer going to be with the Giants because of what her and Sherry Davis have done for female announcers in Major League Baseball. Again, I think about Amelia. I think about Marisol. I think about Adrian. I think about those three who probably were inspired in some capacity by Renell, by Sherry Davis. And again, I mainly just think more about Renell from my personal standpoint. Again, when I said that I was going to be doing a game for the Angels, and then I was asked to come back as an employee for last year and this season, and that Renell said, "Hey, welcome to the MLB family." Hearing it again from somebody who's done it for 20 plus years, who's been a part of 3 world title teams, who has her scorecard from Game 3 of the O2 World Series in the Hall of Fame, for God's sakes, that's going to stay with me for a long time. And again, it just kind of sucks seeing one of your own not being asked to come back, mutual parting of ways or whatever. And again, I don't think I'd be getting like very emotional, but it has really kind of gotten that way over the past segment here, because for one thing, again, like I said, it's a colleague of yours, someone you consider a friend, again, parting of ways, but again, not coming back to their job after 24 years of service. And again, what Rennell has done for people like me, yes. But I mainly think of Amelia Schimmel, Marisol Castro, and Adrienne Robinson. I think about those three ladies a lot, about that they have, because of Rennell, gotten in to this small fraternity of Major League Baseball announcers on the PA side and have proven that a woman can do this job as good, if not better, than someone like me who's done it for 15 years. And we all can thank Rennell Brooks Moon for breaking that barrier along with Sherry Davis. And I know, though, that whatever Rennell does do for her next line of work, she's going to crush it because she's been crushing it for 24 years with the Giants. Whether it's that's getting back into radio, whether that's doing whatever she's done, though, with her freelance work, though, with like the governor's office or civil rights or anything else, whatever she does, she's going to crush it. I know that damn well. But still, though, it does not, though, take away the fact, though, that a fixture, though, of San Francisco Giants baseball in history is no longer going to be there come opening day against my hometown Padres. And again, Rennell, I personally thank you so much for your friendship, the advice, the long week we had of dialogue of trying to set up our meeting last year when I came up to visit after the Padres played the Giants last year. And I thank you for welcoming me into the small fraternity that is the PA announcer group of those who were in Major League Baseball when I got my chance to fill in for the Angels 2 years ago. Again, there's not enough thank yous to go around, though, for somebody who I have long loved and respected and admired from afar. I know the Padres and Giants are in the same division. That doesn't mean, though, that I don't listen to the PA announcer in the background. And I always would get excited, though, when the Padres do play the Giants, because I could always tell or know, yes, I get to listen to Rennell for 3 games or 4 games up in San Francisco. I don't want, again, this is not, folks, a discredit, though, to my fellow colleague here in San Diego, Alex Miniak or Todd Lights or Reed Saunders or Chuck Drago. But there was always something special about when we would go, I say we as a Padre fan, but there was always something special when the Giants would be on TV. Like, yes, I get to hear Rennell for 3 or 4 games. Now I'm that way when I watch the A's. Like, I get to hear Amelia for 4 games. I was that way, though, when Amelia got to do the American Hockey League All-Star game this year in San Jose. Like, yes, I get to hear Amelia for 2 days in a row with the AHL All-Star game. And if I get to watch the Mets on Emily Network and I get to hear Marisol or Aging with the Orioles, like, I love being able to hear my colleagues do what they do best. And I'm sure a lot of them will probably say the same thing if they happen to hear me maybe do a Angel game in 2024 or a minor league hockey game that's on NHL Network, if they happen to tune in on AHL TV or some big event that I get to do. I would hope to hell that I could also have that same exact sort of ordeal of, like, I get to hear Callan tonight. And one of my great colleagues, Jim Gahn in Milwaukee, sent me a message on late Friday night because the Admirals in Milwaukee played in San Diego. And I got a message from Jim saying, "Hey, man, heard you on the broadcast in the background. You sent a great, great job. Good luck rest of the way." Like, that made me feel good. That's kind of in the same boat I'm in, though, kind of talking about Rennell Brooks Moon. Again, I look at it more from the perspective, though, again, about breaking that glass ceiling. Between her and Sherry Davis, those two deserve their flowers for what they have done to get more women involved in baseball. I think of Amelia. I think of Marisol. I think of Adrienne. I think of those 3 on top of Sherry and Rennell. And again, like I said, though, it really, again, means the world to me, knowing, again, that I've networked and I've talked to so many people in my field. But when, though, you're able to forge networking friendships and network with people like Rennell and other people in the field, They feel like family. And I think I recall Rennell saying that Jeremiah and myself are like her sons in the industry because of Jeremiah getting the Cubs gig, and then literally a couple months later, I was filling in for the Angels against Houston in 2022. Again, there's not enough thank yous to go to that can be said to Rennell Brooks Moon. From a professional standpoint, her and Sherry Davis being the torchbearers to get more women involved, whether it's in public address announcing or in radio or TV in Major League Baseball. And the fact that the Athletics, the Mets, and Orioles have actually hired female PA announcers to do that job because of Sherry and Rennell, to the personal connection of, again, I think I announced that I was going to be the MC for the California State Games in February. Rennell Brooksman was the first person to congratulate me. One of the first people who congratulated me when I got to do the Angel game in 2022. Rennell Brooks Moon. So, Rennell, thank you so much for the years of friendship, the years of networking, for being that torchbearer for a lot of females out there who now work in TV, radio, or in PA in Major League Baseball. Thank you for inspiring people like myself to not quit and give up on trying to get to the Major League level. And just, again, thank you for being a great friend and a great mentor to so many of us out there. I think a great friend of mine, Ben Romero, who works up in the Bay Area, he was absolutely crushed hearing the news today when he put out his post on Facebook. But again, Rennell, whatever you do, I know you're going to crush whatever is next. And, you know, hopefully and one day I hope that we can, again, be able to reconnect and, you know, do something again, because it means the world to someone like myself to know that somebody who worked in Major League Baseball for as long as Rennell did, and having them in your corner, cheering you on, supporting you, that means everything right here. And I just, again, cannot thank Rennell enough. And again, Rennell, I wish you all the best going forward. With that, folks, Brandon just sent me a private message asking about the big announcement. We're a few months away from this launching, but it's going to be a very cool project that's going to be blending a couple of my favorite things in an online platform pretty soon. I'll leave it at that. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be cool. I've been working on this project for the latter part of a week already. But again, can't say a whole lot yet still. But it's going to be though, bringing together a couple of my passions other than this podcast. And I'll leave it at that, because there'll be an actual announcement probably within, I'd say, a week roughly, once we kind of get things online and running. With that, folks, in mind, though, thanks for hanging out today. Again, my apologies if today was kind of a rough show, sadly. Again, just kind of getting over being sick, long work weeks and stuff like that. But a big thank you again to Christy and Brandon and James for writing in today, folks. Stay tuned for more programming today. We'll see if we have Bro Code on, if we have the grid, or if we have ourselves with hosting C2C at night. We will let you folks know about that as more time does go on here today. But again, a big thanks again to Big B, to James, and to Christy Wilson for joining us here today. But with that in mind, though, folks, this has been Press Row. We'll see you back here again, folks, for PR again on Thursday, on Wednesday, I should say. Wednesday, we'll be back here. Thursday, I'll be off for work again. We'll see you folks back here Wednesday at 1 o'clock Pacific time back here on C2C. With that, folks, good night. Good day, actually. Bye-bye.